Hey, welcome back to this episode of Think Business Live. I'm looking forward to talking to Nick Foy. Nick, it's great to connect with you, founder and CEO of Silverdale Technology, silverdaletech.com. I'm looking forward to talking with you today, Nick, because we're going to be talking about your specialty, which is process improvements. And as a business coach, working with people all over the globe, I talk about systems and processes a lot. And I think it is such a bedrock fundamental that I think a lot of people aren't paying enough attention to. But being a business coach and working with people all over the globe, which I love to do, and have this podcast where I work with successful people who are stuck and get them unstuck, I like to start off every podcast talking about, in today's world, where's your stuck, Nick?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my stuck is really figuring out how to clone myself at least 6 times, which I need today.
Yeah. So, how do you do that?
Well, that's the challenge, and part of the challenge here is being able to hire, coach, and mentor people to work, in the way that I need folks to work to make the company run, and that's always a real challenge.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hear that a lot with clients that I coach, like you. And I think one of the keys is, Think Community, we talk a lot about this on the show, is investing in the training of those people and the coaching of those people. So you have kind of an extension of yourself that can really kind of dive in and help them grow. But I do think that's a real problem, and investing in your people, which is making sure that you have the right people, is so important today. Let's kind of talk about that and kind of move into when you do have the right people and you don't have the processes, right, for them to execute on a great level, in an exceptional level. What happens? And let's talk about the importance, before we get into it, the importance of processes.
Yeah, so as Taiichi Ono says, I'm a big fan of his teachings. That without process there is only chaos.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of us work every day. Let's face it. Even us as a process-driven company, and that's what we do for a living. We still don't have a process for everything. Processes for me are just part of an overall mechanism, which is something we're very clear with internally, but also externally with our clients, and really helping them build mechanisms that contain both processes, tools, adoption, and audit elements to it. So it's not just good enough to have the process, but you also have the tools to enforce the process, the adoption of the process across the company and the people that need to use it, including people externally, whether it's vendors or customers. But then you also need to have a way of auditing that process, because processes inherently break down over time. So having an audit process to make sure it's still doing the thing you expect it to do is incredibly important as well. A process on its own is important, but it's not the full story.
Yeah. Let's rewind all of this for a minute, because we're talking about the importance of processes. We're talking about the importance of tools to actually implement and execute on those processes. But I think there's a piece that people sometimes discount the amount of time that it may take, which is the space and the time to actually sit down and determine which processes you need, prioritize those processes in the order of creation, understand the impact and the compounding impact that those processes have, and the umbrella of how long this actually takes to do if you have never done it before. And so let's kind of talk about that first, right? If a C-level executive or an owner is listening to this at any point, what is the step one, and then what is the process of knowing the process?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is, and we spend a lot of time with our clients and really making sure that we're focused on the right processes first. Okay, so the reality is, for most companies, that your what you do is not that different from the company next door and the one down the street. So, we all buy stuff, sell stuff, create invoices. We want a P&L, we want a balance sheet, we want to count physical inventory, for example. Guess what? So does everybody else, right? And so the first thing is, do you need to reinvent this process, or do you just need to find out what the best practice is, and do you just need to do it that way? Okay. It's very unusual for those kinds of processes to make a company unique. Okay. So first of all, figure out what processes that you can just adopt best practice and mold yourself, your systems, your processes, your people around those best practice processes. That's the first thing. And then really only focus your time on that 20% of processes that make you unique. Okay, so the thing that makes you stand out from your competition, that differentiates you in the marketplace, that differentiates your product. Okay, focus on those processes. And then figure out, first of all, mapping those processes is very important. Mapping it in the right way. Okay, so getting the right people in the room, not the managers. Okay, the managers think they know how the process works, but trust me, the people who operate the process really know how it works, and that's what we're interested in. We're not interested in the theory of the process; we're interested in the actual process. Okay.
Amen.
So mapping out the current process, figuring out where the issues are, making sure you do it in the right way, and there's all sorts of things you can do around that, having the right work streams in there, having the right ownership in there. It's a very technical process. Don't think that this is something you can download Visio or Lucidchart and do it yourself. Right. If you've never done it before, there is a real skill and a real art to getting this right and to asking the right questions.
Let's talk about the person in the room that holds some power and is stuck in talking theory because they don't know how to kind of move in this direction, right? We've all been in meetings where we're trying to get to the meat, we're trying to reverse engineer, we're trying to do this. And then there's somebody that pulls us out and just talks kind of, the big picture theory person in the room that won't let us do the work, right? You know what I'm talking about. And so how do people talk to that person to, kind of, like you said, no managers in the room, but just to that person who, hey, we got to get to the work and this is what it looks like, right? What's your guidance for that?
Yeah, my guidance on that is actually very simple. And that is to go to where the work is being done. Mm-hmm. Don't sit in the conference room, okay? Because there's very little work that happens in the conference room, okay? The work is happening out on the shop floor. It's happening in the call center. It's happening in the office, okay? So, stick that whiteboard that was stuck to the wall in the conference room, get it on a set of wheels and drag that thing over to someone's desk, okay? And map the process as it's actually happening by the people that are doing it, okay? Again, get away from the theory as to what we think the process is and get to the actual process. So get that whiteboard, take that flip chart, go stand next to someone and sit with them and say, okay, I just want you to do what you normally do, and I'm just going to record what I'm seeing. I might ask you some questions, but don't worry about it. And again, this is where change management communication becomes really important. It's very difficult to do that to someone sitting at a desk and start writing things down, right? So you got to make sure you're communicating what you're doing, why you're doing it, and make sure people are comfortable. But the important thing is that you're actually getting to see the actual process in operation. Okay, see it once, see it twice, see it 3 times, see it 4 times. Go sit with somebody else who's supposed to be doing the same thing. Test it out with that person. Okay, and then go to the conference room. Then share it with the managers to say, okay, here's your process. Okay. And of course, it'll be very enlightening because the manager will say, well, that's not what we do. We're not supposed to do that. Well, I know we're not supposed to do that, but guess what? That's what people do. Okay. So this is your process. Okay. Not the theoretical one.
Well, what I'm also hearing you say, which I agree with, and I find as a business coach, you're going in and actually creating them. I'm guiding people to create them and then referring them to somebody like you to actually create the processes. Sometimes I will help, but I'm not the one who's actually writing every step-by-step down. But I agree with you. What you're talking about is getting everybody into the experience in real time in the trenches and then going to the boardroom, right? That's the key. So now let's kind of fast forward. Let's fast forward a little bit. The processes are done. We now need to roll them out and we need to train. And then we need to, when it comes to training, I think rinse, repeat, make it, make it so people can know what to do consistently, but that doesn't happen overnight. So talk a little bit about that flow.
Yeah, absolutely. So, once you've got your process, then of course, then we're going to be working on the tools that are going to enforce that process. Okay. So that's when we're then looking at the systems that sit around that. Do the systems support, or even better, do they enforce that process? So it can't go wrong. Okay. It can't go to from A to B if this isn't done, for example, right? So the tool needs to be able to support and enforce the process and do error proofing within that. That's the first important thing. Well, once you've got the tool and you're ready to start deploying that tool, then we move into the adoption part. Very important to make sure that people are being trained. So, getting them again at their workspace, okay, not in the training room, okay, at their workspace, logging into a training site with some real world examples. Take a sales order that they did earlier in the day in the real system, place that sales order now on the new system using the new process, and see if you get the same result. Okay. Now, we're very big fans of see one, do one, teach one. Okay. There's nothing better to learn than to teach. And so we're big fans of actually see me do one, you go do one or two or three. Okay. And then I want you to go train the person sitting next to you to do the same. Okay. And what we do is we build that knowledge of, oh, what happens when this goes wrong, when that goes wrong, and you start building, this tribal knowledge within the team of how to solve stuff. So it's not a case of relying on us to answer all the questions. We really want to create a team that can answer their own questions. So certainly see one, do one, train one is a very big part of what we do, and we do that with our super users, etc., that people are used to seeing. That's really how that works. And then, of course, reinforcement. When the process is being rolled out, if we're seeing the right thing, that's where the audit comes in and the mechanism to make sure that we're still doing the right thing. We're reinforcing that with the team to say, hey, yeah, that was great. By the way, I saw you did 5 this morning and they all look perfect to me. Okay, well done. Or actually, this one, I noticed you didn't do this. Was there a reason for that? Or did we just forget? Or what was that? And so we always make sure we're reinforcing real time. Okay, there's no point going back after a week and saying, oh, you made this mistake last Tuesday. There's no point. Okay, people don't learn anything from that. So doing this every day, especially to start with, and reinforcing, hey, this was good, this was bad. Okay, doing some retraining if we need to. But that's really the importance of the audit part of the mechanism.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I love it. We talked, I think, community about a kind of the full continuum of how we should be thinking and what the mindset is, and our ability to train and really get out there and get in the trenches. I love it. This was great. All right, Nick, you ready for a quick speed round?
Let's do it.
What's a book, TED Talk, or an article that's had a big impact on you?
The Checklist Manifesto, #1 book for me. Listened to it about 5 times on Audible, read it about 10 times on the book. It's a well-thumbed book for me.
The Checklist Manifesto?
Yep.
All right, I haven't read that one. I'll check it out. I'll check it out. All right, good. Thanks for that. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's a good one. And last question, finish this sentence. One thing everybody can do to take the first step into evolving their processes to grow their business is?
Buy a whiteboard.
Yeah. A whiteboard is my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing. I agree. I mean, I love a whiteboard. It always amazes me when companies don't have whiteboards, because so much growth gets done in the creativity of mapping things out on a whiteboard. Yep. So I love that you said that. Nick, I really appreciate you being on the show today. Think Community, Nick shared a lot of wisdom today. As you know, I work with successful people who are stuck. I get them unstuck. I love this podcast because I get to have guests like Nick on the show to be in alignment with my mission, which is helping get people unstuck. And you gave a lot of great nuggets to get people unstuck. I want to extract 2 things that you said, even though you said a lot of great things. Which is without process, there's only chaos, which I love that. I love that quote. But also when it comes to the rollout and the execution and the training, I love how simply you put the see one, do one, train one. I think that's great. Just the repetition. And when you teach, you actually, I think, learn more. I see that as I coach people and then they coach people on things I'm coaching them on, that's when it really becomes magical for a lot of people. Nick, tell everybody who your ideal clients are and how they can connect with you.
Yeah, our ideal clients have between 5 and 100 employees. They're in a manufacturing logistics space. We even deal with startups as well. Companies who are willing to adapt to best practice processes, who are willing to change, and really ready to listen to what our experts have to say, and really embrace that. That's the perfect company for us.
That's great. And Think Community, and your website is silverdaletech.com. And Think Community, if you want to connect with me, please connect with me at jondwoskin.com. Nick, this was great. I really appreciate your time and your insights. And again, I'm going to say one more time, Think Community, we should all be training our people more. See one, do one, train one. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate you.
Thank you, John.